pull up the stream so I can monitor chat.
All right. Hello and welcome, everybody, to another exciting stream. Hope you're having a good day so far. It is me, Corey, Sophie. Choco is on the way. He's running a little bit late with traffic, but he will be coming in here soon. So, yeah, I got some questions lined up. I got a new overlay, so hopefully this is more interesting to look at. Hopefully the levels are okay, and hopefully we all have a good time. All right. Well, that is the introduction. Hello, Corey, Sophie. Most podcasts will tell us a little bit about yourself, but I think that's more or less taken care of with this group, so we can just kind of dive right into everything.
Hello, my name is Corey, and I'm the tryhard of the group.
Yeah. Self-proclaimed, perhaps.
Oh, yes. No one else is going to proclaim it.
True.
I'm the triple triad queen of the group, you know? That's definitely self-proclaimed.
Have you gotten the mount yet?
Just spread it around.
Did you get the card mount?
Working on it.
Well, we'll hand you the crown once you get the throne. All right. So, yeah, most of what we're going to be talking about today is a lot of the frequently asked questions that we get all the time. What was your favorite fight? What was your least favorite fight? What are you thinking about the next expansion? Stuff like that. So I'm going to go through some of those ones, but I mean, have as much fun with the answers as you want. It doesn't have to be super serious. I just wanted some sort of outline to jump around if one of them got stale.
Are you sure?
About?
The phrasing.
Yeah, I know what I signed up for.
All right. Just checking. Like to make sure that people are aware.
All right. So, I will start with Sophie, because this is something I'm always interested in. Everybody likes fights for different reasons, but I never know what, there are as many preferences as there are roles and players. But for a healing aspect, that's always a big complaint that I hear in fights. What makes a fight fun to heal for you, Sophie?
It's nice to have to heal. I think that's step one. I think there's a lot of complaints because the healers have gotten a lot stronger over the course of the expansions, and it doesn't necessarily feel like the fights are that much more difficult. So when you go back to the old fights, it's you can compare them however you want, but it's also just healing in T13 was a lot harder with Cure 1 and Cure 2 than it is now with the 10 million things we have. So it is harder to find that stuff where you feel challenged in the savages. But I mean, I really liked cycles from this from T11 or T11, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
E11S, there we go. Because you know, actually having a chance to talk about a plan and needing to talk about a plan with the co-healer was kind of nice, whereas it feels like you don't always have to do that.
Yeah, so when we're hearing you panicking, that's panic of joy. You're enjoying the fight. You like being put in that spot.
Yeah, I think so.
So it's like the back-to-back mechanics that kind of put you on the management of your resources and your spells. What about stuff because I know 12 has quite a bit of healing, but in different areas. So you've got the Hell's Judgment that just puts you down to 1 before another AoE. They've done that kind of thing before. And then just the callback to T2 and Rage Method for the final mechanic of that fight. So how do those kind of pan out on your scale?
Yeah, I have a really love-hate relationship with the Shiva mechanic because on one hand it was really fun to learn to heal because it was interesting and new, and it was okay, you have to do this at this point and kind of make a plan with your whole team so that everyone doesn't die. And that was fun. I thought that was really interesting, but at the same time, there's a lot of moments to hate about the freaking icicles too. So
yeah,
I liked it a lot better than E8S though, because to me, Light Rampant just felt like if one person's messes something up, you just kaboom and you don't even know what happened, and it didn't really feel like there was that much like healing there besides like throw out a Medica 2 or something. So like I liked it a lot better than that in comparison.
Yeah, Light Rampant was one of those where it's like it's more execution than having to deal with what's going on. Like it's mostly your placement. So yeah, I can see where that wasn't quite as interesting, and I mean I definitely agree that whole what went wrong? I don't know. Somebody needs to own up to it.
Yeah.
I really don't know what happened. So like trying to figure out what exactly is the issue. But all right, that's good to know. How about you, Corey? What makes things fun to tank, and did any fight stick out to be fun to tank?
What makes a fight fun to tank is kind of like the level of engagement required to mitigate things. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a tank specific mechanic, but a mechanic that I need to resolve specifically. That would be like kind of like my duty to resolve.
Okay,
And
it's more than just like tank and spank.
yeah, tank and spank is not very fun because it's it's just do the rotation on the boss and don't move away from the boss unless it'll kill you or somebody else. And the tank rotations are not interesting enough to kind of warrant that level of gameplay.
Yeah,
I feel, and finding ways to like optimize and maintain that uptime is fun in its own right. But I would much rather have to do things, I guess similar to like 11 and 12, where I have to be hitting cooldowns, otherwise I will probably die.
Yeah.
The lightning. Go ahead.
Do you like when you have to move the boss around or no?
No, I
Depends
don't
on if the
hate
boss is
having to move the
responsive.
boss. It's more on the issue of the boss not liking to move when I want it to,
Yeah.
rather than not liking. I don't mind having to change the boss's position. I don't like having to do my rotation while doing it because it feels jarring to have to like move and click my buttons at the same time with how the movement and targeting works, because I'll like spin around and then walk back in the other direction halfway through. And that's kind of what's tedious about it. Other than that, I don't mind. I could run the boss in a circle and have fun if I could not have to worry about my abilities like affecting my movement.
That makes sense. That's the part that like stresses me out the most about thinking about tanking is like, what if I have the boss on the whole wrong side of the map and they're like, come over here?
Yeah.
Usually what I'll do is I'll just I'll move and then I'll stand in the spot that I need the boss to adjust to. So that way it'll move into the right range and I won't worry about hitting it during the movement, because it just makes it less annoying and there's less chance for me to kind of mess up the movement, and it just takes less time. That's why in 12, when we do the knockback first on phase 1, instead of going directly back to the boss and then kiting it back as I'm hitting it, I just go directly south of A and just have it move to the center and kind of wait. I lose 2 or 3 globals, but it's not the end of the world to make it less annoying.
Yeah, until we get a Shell Crusher, and then it throws everything off.
Yeah, but I like the dual and triple apocalypse because it's something I have to mitigate and I have to be aware of as it's happening, and I have to like be in my right spot. I don't necessarily care about my rotation at that point, and it's just make sure I'm mitigating and make sure I'm not killing as many people as I can.
Yeah.
And then the last bit, terminal relativity, where we had the whole like everybody has a mitigation plan, I really enjoy, because I like the kind of like the collaborative problem solving of having to have a mitigation plan between the tanks and the healers a lot.
Yeah.
And so with cycles, having to like plan out reprisals go here, Heart of Light goes there, Dark Missionary goes here, and stuff like that. If more fights required kind of that level of communication and teamwork, I think it would be more enjoyable.
As long as it's not E10 mitigation strat. That one's wonky.
I like that strat, even if it's the mechanic is not necessarily like consistent with where the orbs are.
Yeah.
But I don't hate mitigation strats because I think they're neat.
Hello,
I
I'm
like
late. I
interesting
apologize.
ways that are
Welcome back.
different of solving mechanics.
Hi, Choco.
Hello.
Yeah.
Howdy.
All right, so we were just talking about what makes a fight interesting to your job. You can answer this on either healer or tank. But yeah, what stands out to you? Like, what makes a fight interesting or fun to do for
So I
you?
was hearing Corey's answer, and yeah, I kind of made that inference, but um, I think in general, fights should be designed with what Corey was saying, and so anything that doesn't require that is technically, in my opinion, like subpar or under average for a fight. You know?
That coordination you're
Uh,
talking about?
yeah, that coordination. Uh, though I will say that with the changes of aggro in Shadowbringers, I think one of the biggest things I had was there was no real defined like tank role in this expansion at all. Up until like E12, I want to say, with the double I forget what they're called.
The Apocalypse.
No, yeah, the during intermediate or double APOC where one tank had to run out, one tank had to
Yeah.
run in.
We had a couple swaps like with the what was it called, Corey? The one that made you blow up?
Powdermark?
Yeah, Powder Mark.
See,
that one's pretty good.
I'll let you go first. I'll go.
Oh yeah, but it's like those inherently are just like aggro busters. I'll call them. Like for example, E12 they had the swap mid char cast. They had Leviathan where you had to swap before it finished casting, and like that's like super bare bones to me. But it technically didn't have to be a tank, if you get what I mean, right? Like the only thing differentiating a tank and a DPS at that point was having a stance on. And so it was like what is a role, what does the tank role mean this expansion? And to be honest, I felt like it was kind of lacking. So TLDR, E12 phase 2 is the only good fight.
It was a very good fight.
I can see that because for tanking, I agree. It's like basically there's no need to have an off tank. If you can have a DPS with enough health to live through a thing,
Yeah.
there's really no point to having a second tank. Effectively, because they don't
You were gonna say something?
they don't do much
The tanks
aside
are
from like
just
just
DPS
provoke
a
so
lot
that
of
way.
health.
Yeah.
Once Reaper has like 300k HP, then we don't have to worry. We can just forgo. We can just go run 5 DPS. But once if all tanks are doing is just like swapping aggro here and there, it's kind of not that interesting for to be one tank at a time.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting.
One tank will have something to do, but the other's kind of like meh.
Yeah, I like that you brought up dual APOC because that was going to be my answer for like what was probably the most fun mechanic, and obviously I didn't tank very long. But for this last tier, that like dual APOC and triple APOC, even just Corey having to go out and me picking up the boss and like kind of having that shift, there was a nice change of pace from really not having to do a whole lot other than hit provoke or make sure my stance is on at a certain point.
And kind of like with that point, I'm going to backtrack in the tier all the way to 5 with Ramu. Ramu, this is kind of encroaching on a later question, but what is the worst fight? That's Ramu for me, hands down. Because as the main tank, I have exactly one job, and that's keep the boss at a point where the melee can hit it. The off tank has all of the, I guess, the interesting work of managing the ad, but even then it's only for like a little bit.
Right.
And the ad actually hits hard, and you have to like mitigate stuff and like move around and do shit. And I think that's infinitely more interesting than other stuff that was required of like the main tank during 5. And kind of my take on 5 overall is 5 is only half a fight because the second half is just a repeat of the first. And if in the second half the ad was out the whole time, I would have enjoyed the fight a lot more, having to like swap and then deal with the ad myself and have the other tank do some stuff.
I think if Ramu was the last fight in the tier, the potential would be so much higher.
I really liked Ramu, but that's not really. I heard a lot of tank complaints for sure while doing it, but just overall, like the mechanics themselves, I thought were more interesting than a lot of the other first fights they've released.
Yeah, because I was going to think about that because that's the only one of the only ads I remember having to be managed in that. So, yeah. The other thing that was possible, like in first part of 12, was going to be the Lions, just with how normal worked. But they opted for Lions Rampant instead. So literally it's just like melee DPS, or melee and ranged versus healer tank DPS or anything like that.
Yeah. To kind of go off what you said, Sophie, the 5 was a good fight mechanically because the mechanics were interesting. There just wasn't enough of them, and they were repeated too many times, I feel.
Yeah, part of me feels like he could have just been like a little less healthy because it was the first fight. So I don't know. It just felt like it took a while. Not that that added any difficulty.
Yeah, it definitely got very mind numbing after we got to a certain point, and if we had an unfortunate wipe, and then it's just like, wait, are we on the first part of the fight or the second part of the fight?
Yeah.
Oh man, that was
For me, 10 really had the worst pacing though of any fight this tier. Oh my god, that fight felt like it took an eternity.
Absolutely.
That might be all the damage downs we ended up getting.
yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Kind of backtracking a little bit though. Now that I think about it, E9 with the wide angle and the anti-air, I think that type of mechanic would be really good for tanks. But the fact that it only happens like 3 times in that fight in E9, like makes it kind of like you can just write it off basically. But if you designed fights with tanks in that perspective, I think that you could get away with Final Fantasy's like non-aggro issue to like, because aggro's not a thing anymore, right?
No,
It
not
really
really.
isn't.
Yeah, so like I feel like mechanics should be designed without aggro in mind, right? Like E12S, like they had to make first and second in aggro just for the sake of the tank buster, but in reality, it should have been something like more mechanically intensive, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know how to word that
Hell,
properly. But...
I'd even like something a little bit more like Susano, where something else is happening and the off tank has to hold it off, or something like. Even though it's not really engaging necessarily, it looks really cool and it feels good. I remember everybody still fighting to catch the sword, just because that was you wanted to be the one. But even then, in Susano, the off tanks catching orbs as well.
Right.
Most people could do that, but still, like everybody had a job. And even though it was like a trial from last expansion, it was, more like that would be really neat, I think.
I'm curious now because he wasn't here when we talked about it, but Choco, what was your favorite thing to heal out of what you healed this tier?
Favorite thing to heal. That's kind of hard to say. I think because healing is such a new experience for me, I think figuring out how to heal Shiva was really fun and challenging. But man, did it suck.
Yeah. Yeah, I basically said that too.
Let's see. I misplaced our discussion notes basically.
That's fine.
I have to find. But I don't know if we are gonna talk about it or not. But I think we're talking about like issues with the jobs we were playing.
Yeah, I'll get into.
Okay, then yeah, I'll hold
I'll
off
get
on
into that.
Yeah,
I mean, we can jump into it if you're ready for it. I don't. There's no real formula. I just kind of threw things together in case we ran out of stuff to talk about. So
Right.
what Choco's talking about is we had a point where we wanted to talk about what things were good about the changes to your roles. And Choco, you've done both healing and tanking, so you can chime in on both of those. But also, yeah, and then we can what should be changed moving forward, or what you think is still lacking. So since you've got your answer right now, Choco, go ahead.
I hope they changed in Endwalker due to the split in healing with regen and shield healing, but one of the biggest issues with Scholar in particular was there was a lack of oh shit, instant AoE heals, right? I had Indom, and that was it. Fey Blessing, Pet AI.
Emergency tactics feels so bad to try to get out quickly.
It's terrible.
Having to hit 2 buttons.
Because even if I
You
emergency
try to switch
swift,
cast. Yeah, it takes
Yeah.
forever.
it's because there are multiple points where I had messed up, I mismanaged my healing, or I just died, where we were lacking healing, and Sophie did everything, and I just had nothing. Indom was on cooldown, That was it. It was just like, well, yeah,
So
well, it looks like we're dead.
yeah, what would how would that change? Like what do you think like Scholar, for instance, would benefit from? Like specifically for their
um,
kit rather than just like say taking from what Astro or White Mage have.
it really needs to revamp pet AI because in E12 Part 2 specifically, basically from the moment we cleared all the way up till now, I always try to time Seraph so that we get healed while we're getting knocked back
Yeah.
in the very beginning. And it's always hit or miss. Like 4 people will get hit by it, 4 people will not get hit by it, and they'll have shields after the hit. It's it's so bad. Like when you throw out an AoE heal as you're getting knocked back, you kind of account for that like server tick. Like in Shiva, for example, right? Like so if we cures 3 as we're getting knocked back, so you can account for that. But
Mm-hmm.
Seraph is so delayed that no matter how hard you try to time it, there's just too much of a variance where like I can't reliably do it.
I feel like you should be able to use the AoE, the one that uses your pet gauge more. Because like it's not even that big of a heal, and it,
Yeah.
I don't know, just using it once just always feels so bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like yeah, Gauge needs a like in terms of Scholar specifically, Gauge needs more of a use. AI needs to be a little more responsive, I guess. Like even if it was like if it was consistent at least, I would be not happy, but like okay, they tried, right? If it's consistent, so I can like
Yeah.
time it, but like it's so off.
Yeah, having that...
Having,
Go ahead.
sorry, having Whispering Dawn still go on cooldown in between like switching between the fairies and stuff, like that. The fact that that still happens just like makes me hate the job.
So I also scholared for DR Savage, and because there's like what 48 people in there, my tank wasn't really main tanking at all. I was at 100% gauge for basically the entire time. It just felt so bad.
Mm-hmm.
So,
It's
like with the advent of Reaper coming in, kind of how it sees where it has a pet, but not really. Like it's just an extension of itself, which I think is what they should have done a while ago. That's what I've been advocating for. Is that something that do you think Scholar could benefit from, along with like having more to do with your gauge and stuff like that?
I think at this point it wouldn't do well for Scholar's identity, because in a sense that kind of be like obviously Summoner and Scholar both want pet AI fix, but like if you were to just remove the pet and just kind of have it like like just visually next
animations.
to you, yeah, I don't think it would be as like enjoyable. You know what I mean? Like if Bahamut and Phoenix were just they weren't actually attacking, they were just doing the animations for it. And like it's coming from you technically. Like I don't think it'll have the same level of like enjoyment. But like I don't it's hard to say because I think the whole as much as scholars and summoners bitch and complain about their pets, I think if you got rid of the pets, they would there would be a bit of a like
Yeah.
riot.
From what I've
I've heard
seen,
different
it's
things.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, I've seen like a really 50-50 split from people, which is not great on either direction.
Yeah.
Because like I see some people that are like, yeah, I wish I could just use the abilities and they would be like pet themed. And then, there'll be one other person for that person that says, nope, I'll quit the game if that happens. It's like, okay.
Yeah, because I've heard a lot of people that just like, no, I don't want Eggies anymore. Just having like, well, on Summoner it's a little different because you can still summon things as part of your ability, and that's
Right.
basically the same thing. Whereas the Fairy doing its own thing is quite a bit different thematically, I suppose. So having that be 1-to-1 might not be the fix they're looking for. But well, what about something like emergency tactics? People were kind of talking about that. If that was just its own button that did its own thing, would that kind of help that ability, or do you think just find something new?
The problem with emergency tactics is like if you were just to make it like an oh shit button, then it would functionally be the same as Indom in a sense, right?
Mhm.
So like emergency tactics has its place. It's very niche and it's very like specific, but it does has its uses in my opinion. Like
Okay.
yeah, especially because there are times where like obviously the white mage has stronger, like more potent AoE heals, but it's still not enough sometimes, right?
Yeah.
So especially during Shiva, before we were, out gearing it, there were times where I had to emergency sucker. So like these days it's not that bad, but yeah, there are times where it's like you just need that little bit extra heal.
All right.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like there are also times when, like, just things are going badly and like everyone's dying and then they're like all coming back alive and you just want to be able to like do something instead of just like screaming.
But screaming's the fun part. You're having fun when you're screaming, remember?
You know the video you released today, Drag? I was watching over that and like they're making the raid DP. I was making the raid DPS joke with the monkey and like Sophie was like, "We need heals," and I'm like, I remember that moment because I had nothing at that point. Legitimately, I had nothing. So like, even if I was like focusing, I guess I could have like hard casted sucker, but like there was not much I could have done at that point. So like, yeah, that's on me, but at the same time, like, shit, I don't have anything.
Yeah. That was such a good moment. I had no idea, so it's not like I could throw shade or anything. I was just like, it's a good clip. But
I was just screaming in desperation.
yeah. Just come on, monkey, give me that aether. Come on, monkey, hand it over. My DPS is good. What's up, Corey?
But like,
I was just making a joke with the monkey. Give me the aether. Give
Yeah.
it.
So like my only like wish for Endwalker is like, as much as they're working on Sage and whatnot, like they should probably take a look to see like, is the opportunity cost of losing the fairy and the other changes they're gonna do in Endwalker worth it to go to Sage, right? Like, if in its current state, right, if you use like, oh, here's another shield healer, no fairy, like I think 80% of the player base that plays Scholar will be like, nope, I'm leaving. Bye, Seraph. You're a piece of shit. Right? But like, yeah, like they either need to add and fix the fairy, or they gotta make Sage shit, which I don't think anybody wants the latter.
Yeah,
Right.
that's an interesting point because it's like people want the fairy as a part of the theme, but they don't want to have the inconvenience of it being poorly behaved. So it's yeah, it's going to be a really tight balancing act for them to keep that and make it still work properly. But I mean, I totally understand feeling like, why am I jumping through extra hoops when this job over here gets it for free or so much simpler? So I feel that.
Dude, me and my sister were talking about the level 80 abilities the other day, and like, White Mage, you get fucking wings that mitigate and heal more. Astro, you get both of your sex at once. Scholar, yeah, you get a fucking special blue fairy that doesn't heal half the time. Piece of shit.
I think it's something that's really weird to me about Scholar. I find it weird that when you use Whispering Dawn and Fey Illumination as Seraph, they have different icons, but they just do the same thing. Like I find that extremely anticlimactic.
Like, oh god, honestly, God, I know this is like Stormblood, but honestly, if they just made Seraph like a better Rouse, I would have been okay.
Looks like we're back. Okay. So let's go back here. Corey, for tanking, what are you glad that they changed, or whichever order you want to go in? How is tanking right now?
Tanking is fine. I'm glad they kind of I'm gonna say I'm glad that they changed aggro, because it really didn't serve a purpose.
Yeah.
In Stormblood. I know people ask me, like, aren't you like, oh man, Shirk memes, aren't you sad that they removed it? I'm like, not really, because it was a very lazy way of doing it. But like, if I'm going to grief you people, I want you to know that I'm actively trying, and it's being lazy about it.
It's not trying though.
Sometimes it's not, and it's just natural born talent, or lack thereof, depending on how you want to look at it. But changing how aggro works and kind of removing the ability to troll people with Shirk outside of like E12 phase 1 with the Buster is not really a detriment. I feel that had they not changed tank aggro and just left in the aggro abilities on other people, on like the DPS and stuff, it would have been fine. Because I think like Ninja and Bard having that many like aggro dumps and aggro control was kind of a neat utility to work with. But with stances changed, there was no reason for it anyways. Because there's no downside to having your stance on versus before, where it was a damage loss to have it on. And to kind of segue into that point, I don't miss stance dancing either, because if you were playing properly, you'd never switch to your tank stance anyways.
Yeah.
You didn't. It was not necessary, and anytime you did, it was just not optimal. What was that, Choco?
My sword oath.
It's a gauge now.
It's shit.
Yeah, you got Iron Will now and something else.
But like, to counter that though, I don't know. I feel like not necessarily not necessarily the stance dancing part of it, but like just the generation, like the initial aggro generation, I think was pretty like interesting to me, right?
I don't disagree.
Like for example, especially with ads and stuff, like when I was in Sigmascape, that was like my first like full tier. In 07, there was the Dataluma ad and the Ultros ad, and initially I couldn't get aggro off of it in Sword Oath because my gear was shit, and but I had to stance. But as one, my play got better, and two, as my gear got better, it was possible to start generating aggro with Sword Oath. I don't know. I've just found like little optimizations, like shield swipe was a potency gain, or not potency, an aggro generator. So I would block an attack as the ad was spawning, so that I could pick that up faster and stuff. Just minor stuff like that I kind of miss, right?
So with that, I would like aggro generation more if we were brought back the aggro combos and you had to work that into your rotation to kind of like mix it up, so it's not just for Dark Knight 1 2 3, for Warrior put up I and then 1 2 3.
Yeah, they really oversimplified it.
And having an aggro combo and removing tank's super aggro generation, I think would be more interesting to kind of do, because you have to like manage your DPS versus your threat versus your DPS versus your DPS's threat. And I think that would be something else that would be more interesting to deal with than what we have currently, where it's just do the most damage and threat doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The main thing I didn't like as a healer about the old aggro stuff is the fact, like, I really didn't like that other jobs had abilities that had to be used to like reduce aggro and stuff. And it was like only certain jobs that have them, because like we did my old group did Kefka without a ninja. And I just would die all the time.
I remember Kefka, and I remember X-Death, and Neo X-Death specifically.
Yeah.
Killing the white mage, because out-threading a white mage right before those busters was very difficult. If you were trying to not do poop DPS. So there's a lot of white mage bodies lying around X-Death's arena.
Yeah, and a lot of them are me.
Backtracking a little bit though, I think the problem, from my perspective, the problem with the simplicity of tanking isn't like, it's a two-part thing, right? Like if we left it as it was in Stormblood, there would be a huge division between high-end players and like lower skilled players, and like understandable, you want to bridge that gap, so they made it homogenized. But the problem is Square's like philosophy from day one is never teach people how to play. So instead of bringing the bottom and the top to the middle, they just brought the top down.
Yep.
And that's honestly my problem with Square's like design, right? Like if they had like the current aggro system, but they like encouraged players to play quote unquote optimally, then like okay, yeah, like sure, that's fine. But like we still got people macroing abilities, like
no, like I 100% agree, and it's something I talk about all the time because they really, back when I was talking with Larry about this stuff, I actually went through and saw what they were teaching new players, and it is so minimal, so bare bones. Like they don't really teach you how to like think. Really, it's like get aggro,
Mhm.
use a couple cooldowns, and that's about it. Like they don't really motivate growth at all, and it's a huge gap between lower and I mean the gap is still there. It's just they're not giving newer players the chance to grow unless they're a part of a group that is correcting them. Like I would not be nearly as improved if I did not have people telling me how garbage I was doing and why. So yeah, Square needs to do a lot better on that front. And it's if you don't believe it, just go on the forums and look at the job discussions. I have people like Monk's too fast. I'm like, stop right now. You need to stop there. You're not like I'm not mad at you, but there's here, and then I'm like explaining it. If you want something slower, you got Dragoon a little bit faster, Samurai a little bit faster, Ninja a little bit faster, or the fastest currently, Monk. And then those are the tiers right now. So you have options to choose from. Don't make don't ruin it for the people who like that. Basically, like just giving people something else to think about. But just the fact that they don't consider that they like how could they know? Unless they're like really deep
Right.
diving into it. Like I'm not mad at anybody who plays this game casually. They should still be able to play the game. Like be given the tools to play at a decent level, and it's just not right now.
I think the
Like, I
problem
think
is there's not a set
oh, no, go ahead.
definition for what a decent level is.
Right.
It's very arbitrary on what's good and what's bad.
Well,
There's like numerically there's a
Right.
best, right? And there's numerically things that don't live up to the best. But there is a lot of in between from the lowest possible end of being able to clear still and the highest end of like gold parsing.
Mm-hmm.
And because there's so much middle ground and there's no in-game there's no good way in game to go about educating people in what is effectively a single player game with some multiplayer elements thrown in afterwards.
Yeah,
I feel like
go ahead.
sorry.
No,
Sorry.
you're fine.
I feel like there are a lot of tools in the game that like start to explain things to people in like the very beginning and then like they could just continue them. Like if you take like the is it called the novice hall? I think it's called the novice hall.
Yeah.
Where you go in and it's like, yeah, it teaches you really good stuff for early on. Like why can't they just continue that and like
Yeah.
keep teaching people stuff as they level up?
Yeah, they need more to it. And as a Rummer born player, I miss more difficult dungeons. I miss like being able to cheese certain things, and they stopped people from doing that. And the issue, or like the benefit of it, was that you had the community coming together and teaching people in dungeons things that everybody was doing, things that everybody was playing. What was it? Endwalker Keep, I think the original one with the bee wall, the demon wall. That one was a hard boss, and it required people to know what they were doing and to like think about what they were doing and consider, should we use the LB here? And like if you were a good warrior at the time, you could still solo it. It was very possible to do. It was a lot of fun. But they saw a lot of people struggling with it, and instead of encouraging players, hey, help each other out, this is what you can do, they just nerfed it.
I want to kind of go with that though. Sorry to
No,
interrupt.
Mhm.
Choco,
No, go ahead.
but with the fact that you said the dungeons were harder, are the dungeons harder because they were harder, or are they harder back then because people were worse at the game collectively? I
It's
feel
a little bit of
the
both.
general skill of the player base has increased tremendously from
Oh,
Realm Reborn
absolutely.
to now.
Yeah, people can clear Titan hard pretty
Yeah.
effectively. So, but even just having something that challenges you a little bit and adapting that per expansion, and like you said, there's no clear cut thing, but they experiment with other things. I think that's one aspect of the game that they should keep considering and keep playing with. And because they're like new difficult dungeons, every time I laugh my ass off when they're announcing a new expansion. I'm like, no, they're not challenging. They're just something to do for 25 minutes.
Kind of going into Corey's point though, like my biggest issue with Square and their like hands-off approach is they rely on player feedback for other players to like learn and improve, but you also get punished for speaking your mind. You know what I mean? So like you have dungeons, you have trials, and to an extent extreme trials. Like extreme trials are hovering in the middle, right? Everything past that has a numerical limit. You cannot clear the boss if you don't have that numerical value. Like you're doing this much damage per second, right? However, the fact that one, they don't tell you that information. Two, if you mention it to anybody, say, hey, like even in the nicest way, like, hey, like with your current damage and the way you're playing, you physically cannot clear this fight unless the other 7 people like carry you basically.
Yeah.
If you mention
Yeah.
anything like that, you get in trouble. So it's like,
Right.
what does Square want us to do?
Yeah, I wish the game like I feel like the game itself needs tools. It doesn't obvious like I personally don't think that they need to put like a parser in the game, but at least a way to like tell people if they're doing enough to just like clear the fight. Like we have Stone Sea and Sky, but like I have never really used extensively, but I've heard it's like really not actually helpful. And it just to have like a really clear way to tell someone like, hey, like this is you're maybe not doing enough damage to
Yeah.
like clear this fight would be helpful.
I just really heavily disagree with their mentality of we can't tell people what to play because then people are like, well, Yoshi P said do this. I'm like, but you do have it set you have intended rotations. Like, yeah, the community can always come up with something better than they have before, but if you're not giving the players that info, like even just in like kind of tooltips or like how things should flow or anything like that, then players just aren't going to beat the content and you're going to have to keep bringing it down and down and down.
Right. Like I've been playing a lot of other MMOs like World of Warcraft and recently Sword of Legends, and specifically Sword of Legends. It's still in beta, so it's not really fleshed out, but they have a tutorial system that is so much more in depth than Final Fantasies. It's kind of frustrating, right? Like there's like you get sent to like this mini island, like an instance, and it tells you like, oh, if you're playing a tank, like, oh, make sure you face everything away from the party. They have 2 AI like partners with you, and they will deliberately stand in AOE's, and they'll tell you, hey, make sure your teammates don't get hit by this.
Yeah.
So it's like one, like it's really easy to like put that in. I feel right, like they have the bare bones of it in Hall of Novice, and two, it's like you're not even telling them how to play. You're just telling them general good advice, and Square doesn't even want to do that.
Yeah. They really go worst case scenario right off the bat. Like it's if we do this, this is going to happen. But they don't consider all the benefits that are also possible. Because they can still punish people who harass, and I think they should punish people who, like, very. I think that it's possible to clearly define this is harassment versus somebody's just giving you advice. Man, they just want you to improve. They want to get the fight done. You know what I mean? So.
I would disagree with the like that it should be clear cut to define what's harassment, what's not, because I've seen posts from like 2 different GMs on 14 have entirely different takes on how they're enforcing the rules, and one says you're banned and the other says you're not. But it's like, what do you do when their moderation team for in-game issues isn't united on how they deal with one arbitrary issue, let alone like harassment?
Yeah,
which is
I think
already
it
more
should be a
vague.
thing. Yeah, it's just I don't know, man. It's something they need to work on, for sure. But
Drak, you guys have that content creator influencer status. Maybe Corey soon. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink.
we're talking. I'm talking about it anytime I go on things like this or hosting things like this. It's always my stance, and I'm corrected a lot too. Like I get different opinions, and that grows, and that's why I like doing things as a community. Like especially even for the job stuff. That's not my ideas being listened to by Square. It's ideas being thrown out there that the community then like helps refine and gives feedback on, and do we actually all really like this, or how do we feel about this kind of direction? And I think that's a better way of doing it. Having the ability to host the tone and set it for these kinds of topics is important, because there are people who are just very, very negative, very, very toxic, and sometimes the team can feel bullied into doing stuff like with certain other things that they've added to the game. But Yeah, I think that we just need to. That's why I always encourage people to give feedback, and that's the way I try to use the platform that I have to get people to
You
talk
know what's
about it.
funny though? This topic we're on right now, it doesn't matter if it's tank, healer, DPS. Literally, all three roles can have this
Oh
conversation and
yeah,
come to the
oh
same
yeah, for
conclusion.
sure.
Yeah.
That's why once everybody said their piece, I was going to steer it back to the the tank
Okay,
healing
okay, okay.
stuff. But no, it's fine to point it out because I mean it's good to know that everybody feels that way, or to see if everybody feels that way. So, and everybody's input is important still. So, uh, it's still good conversation. But does anybody else have
So
anything to add, Corey?
for this topic, no. I was gonna segue back into like
Uh-huh.
what kind of like change like role stuff for
Oh
tank.
yeah.
So like changes I would kind of like want for tanks for Endwalker. Um, I want more dynamic rotations, especially in Warrior and Dark Knight. I know that's not necessarily a popular thing because I think there is kind of like an important bridge to gap between introductory tank, like kind of like easy beginner to learn, simple, it doesn't have to be complex, and like the Gunbreakers, like here's something to do every 30 seconds for the entire fight, and
Mm-hmm.
don't fuck it up once because then you're DPS tanks. And so like having kind of middle ground on levels of activity are nice, but I feel Warrior and Dark Knight are not engaging to a point where I would want to play them, but they don't have to go up to Gunbreaker levels
Yeah,
for me to want to play them.
yeah,
TBN is nice, and like Edge and Flood of Shadow are okay, but I want a little more out of them.
right.
And like having an aggro rotation to manage would kind of help bridge that gap a little bit. But for Warrior specifically, it's very slow, it's very repetitive, and it's not engaging. It's strong and it can be fun if you like hitting big numbers.
Mm-hmm.
But I want more buttons to press so I don't have to turn my brain off when I play it.
Kind of going back to the, yeah. Finish your thought. Sorry.
Because I think Warrior has the least amount of buttons in the game, except for maybe Dancer and Machinist,
Yeah.
and it's very close between the three. And I just can't play it for long periods of time without wanting to take a nap.
Yeah. Kind of how I was saying stuff about how they had different like skill speed tiers from ranging from Dragoon to Monk. Do you think it might benefit the community at all to have those differences in something that's a little bit more simple and straightforward versus something like Gunbreaker that's more complex for people who like that? Or do you think that a little bit more complexity across the board is going to help in general?
I think it's important to hit all parts of the spectrum on like ranging from simple to complex,
Mm-hmm.
so that way everybody feels like they have a tank to play. Um, so like if I were to have to up, let's say Warrior's complexity, either Dark Knight or Paladin would have to move down a tier to fill that role as
Yeah.
kind of like I classify Warrior as the beginner tank. Anytime somebody asks me what tank should I start on, Gladiator or Warrior, my answer is every time Warrior, because I feel you learn more important lessons on Warrior than you do, or at least you learn more important lessons on Warrior earlier on than you would on Paladin slash Gladiator or like Dark Knight or anything else. Just due to how you have to like for overpower specifically, learning how to have to position yourself and enemies within an AoE around your party is kind of like a fundamental thing you need to be able to do, and having to read the effect of your skills and kind of like understand the range of it is a little trickier to do with overpower, but learning how to do that on Warrior will make it easier to transition to every other tank who has a radial AoE that's not a cone.
Yeah. All right.
Just to further Corey's point a little bit, going back, and he was like talking about the similarities between Warrior and Dark Knight. Like, IR and Equilibrium memes aside, right? Like, every tank at this point has very similar mitigation, and what previously in the past made each tank unique in that sense is pretty much now homogenized. So, like, all of the tanks
Yeah.
have the same mitigation. So, what makes them unique is their rotation, right? But by making basically all three tanks is like rotation be 1, 2, 3, and then like cut it up with different segments of other things. So a Paladin would be fight or flight and rescue escort. Gunbreaker would be continuation, no mercy. Warrior and Dark Knight, despite the meme, have such a similar intermediate phase in their rotation that just makes them lose all identity. And I think that's why the meme exists in the first place. It's not the fact that you do 5 GCDs and a buff cooldown. It's just like when you're not doing 1, 2, 3, you're just hitting one button.
Yeah. Yeah. The difference with Dark Knight is at least we have the like Edge and Flood of Shadow, and I like having off global stuff. So I feel like Dark Knight is in a decent starting place to be kind of in an intermediate tank role, because you've got stuff to you've always got buttons to hit, and at least with the Delirium, if you time that out with Blood Weapon, then you've got a lot of blood coming in to spend on like Edge. So at least you're hitting something that feels akin to continuation, just not quite as intricate. And I'd like to kind of throw my 2 cents on what I would like to see, at least for Dark Knight, because I ended up really liking Dark Knight. There are things that definitely could improve, but I think having more, we were talking about this in a stream, more like magic abilities and having it kind of be the mage tank, that Spellblade type thing where it's using darkness a little bit more than just having hit the same, thing over and over again, but kind of going off
Imagine
of that.
playing Dark Knight with a red mage.
Yeah, it's got a lot of potential there. I don't know what would be too much, but yeah, seeing more happen with the blood gauge, or maybe at a certain point in the combo, like Corey was saying, bring back a DPS rotation where you hit that and it gives you like 3 types of an Edge of Shadow. Maybe you're still hitting the same button, but maybe it's something you can weave in, because that's kind of continuation. You hit 3 buttons and then the 4th in between, right? It's 1 button off global, 1 button off global, 1 button off global.
Yes.
Just
The one
pace.
button and the off global are they're 2 separate buttons, but you hit them 3 times each during a continuation.
Yeah, and that I love that.
It feels really satisfying with the animations. The sounds could be tweaked a little bit,
Yeah.
but what I really want out of tanks for the expansion is give every tank a secondary resource to manage, solely for either mitigation or damage.
Right.
So for like, I'm gonna use Gunbreaker as an example. We have blue cartridges right now that are used exclusively for damage. Give us red cartridges on top of the blue ones that we build up through a separate rotation. That doesn't necessarily have to do a whole lot less damage or any less damage. I don't necessarily care.
Yeah.
But that can only be used on defensive mitigation.
Okay.
This guy wants the opposite of Paladin. What's wrong with him?
No. I want Paladin to have some. Paladin has nothing to do with his own game. You
Who
can
is
put
this
Shelter
guy?
on cooldown and it doesn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
I like having multiple resources to manage, and Paladin like barely has one. Like you could claim you could have to manage your mana, but you get that back by the time you need it.
Yep.
But like your oath gauge is kind of irrelevant. You can use Sheltron more or less on cooldown or intervention on cooldown, and it wouldn't make a big noticeable difference, I feel. And with cover on the gauge cost, nobody
It's
touches
useless.
it. It's
They lost the
completely a
20%
dead skill.
too. Actually, I used it once and it got clipped. I clipped it.
It had to be memorialized, the final use of cover for the expansion.
No, the Shadowbringers. Smile.
And then, yeah, no, that's the last time anybody was going to use it. The entirety of Shadowbringers, the first and last. But give a warrior some secondary gauge to build up, to like have to use and spend outside of their rage for like fell cleaves that they have to do to mitigate. Dark Knight has this probably the best with terms of blood and mana. Mana can be used for both offense and defense, and blood is purely offense. So it's the closest to what I kind of want, and I do like how you have to manage those things on Dark Knight a little bit more than the other tanks. But I want something else to pull my attention away from my bare bones rotation.
Yeah, for sure.
No, TP is awful, Sam. Nobody wants that back. I don't want that back. I want a finite resource that I
Out
have
of
to build up.
curiosity, Corey, like,
Yeah.
how would you feel about other roles that don't use MP? Like, basically reskin their MP to be a different, like, resource, basically.
I'm fine with it. Do it.
Like, I think in WoW, like, warriors have, like, Wrath or Rage, something like that.
Yeah, they have rage.
Yeah, so something like that.
And yeah, like if or even if like to use WoW as an example, how warrior builds up rage from attack, like auto attacking too.
Mm-hmm.
You get so much more rage during a fight, and you have to like dump it a lot more actively than warrior does in 14. There's a lot more management into the resource than is required in any of the tanks in 14, I feel. And I'm all for that, because you can just take away MP or just change it to something more interesting that I have to pay attention to. Because I joke so many times in 12, it's like, hey, look, Choco, you want my MP? I know you're out. I have max. You can just have it.
Yeah, that's another thing I like about Dark Knight is having the blood and the MP, and how they kind of work together on that.
I hate having dead stats. It feels
Yeah.
bad to look at. It's like, why is this here? Why am I looking at this?
Yeah. So as far as like what's been bad, how are you liking Gunbreaker then? Like how's it stacking up?
Gunbreaker is by far and away the most fun tank at the moment for me. If I had to pick a second tank to like take second place for fun, I would probably say Paladin. Not because it's like super fast paced and engaging, but it requires me to think about what rotation I'm going to open with and how I'm going to adapt it to fit the fight. So like, am I going to open with the Requiescat opener, or am I going to open up with the fight or flight? What lines up better for the phases? How do I optimize this?
Yeah.
And having to manage that is a lot more interesting to me than, do I fell cleave here or do I save it a global and then fell cleave there? That's there's not much thought into warrior. At least Dark Knight has the two resources to manage to kind of pull your attention away from the bare bones rotation. But warrior does not have that. And that's kind of like my biggest complaint and why I keep playing Gunbreakers, because it keeps me engaged the entire time. Because I only have at most 40 seconds of like downtime between my one continuation to my next, or not my continuation, my No Mercy to the next.
Mm-hmm.
But even then, I have a continuation in the middle of that to kind of refresh my attention all the time.
All right. So it's pretty good then.
It is pretty good.
I was going to that would have been my other choice for a tank, because I remember doing it at the media tour and I was like, oh, this feels good. This is fun. Without even like taking it into a fight, it was very interesting to mess around with. So, Sophie.
Is it healer time?
It's healer time. How are you feeling about White Mage, and why is it the best?
It's kind of funny because on the media tour, like before Shadowbringers came out, my mind was in this space where I was like, I wish White Mage could make other people do more damage, because Scholar and Astro can do that. And like, why can't I do that? And so during my interview with Yoshi P, I asked him, why, like, is White Mage going to get some ability to, like, have something akin to chain strat or cards? At the time, he laughed in my face and said that,
laughing.
like,
He was really frustrated though.
It was like and he was basically like, well, wouldn't that make all the jobs the same? And yeah, I now realize that, like, I enjoyed it a lot more this expansion, because it kind of felt more different than it did in the past. But to some extent, I feel like all the healers, I mean, a lot of the jobs in the game have become homogenized in their own way, which is pros and cons, because it's nice that, like, you don't get in as many situations as you may have in the past where certain jobs are like ostracized or people don't want them. I mean, obviously at like the very top of high end play, there's still like comps and stuff, but I think it's less so than it used to be in like the general party building comps. That being said, I think with healing in general, I just want them to do more like experimental healing mechanic stuff. Cause I feel like as it stands, like I know I mentioned it earlier that I feel like, oh, we've gotten so many more healing tools, and I don't feel like a lot of the mechanics have kind of kept up with that. But it's also just a matter of like, I feel like a lot of the fights you go in and it's like, okay, here's an AoE. Okay, here's a bigger AoE. Now we're gonna put you at 1 HP. Whereas like I was doing Shinru EX the other night, and when the like mechanic comes out where you have to like heal like the little heads or whatever. I know not everybody really liked that mechanic, but like at the same time, it was just really cool to like have that come up and be like, oh, this is different. What do I do? This is new. Like I just want to see them like for better or for worse, like keep trying new stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm gonna cut in here, Sophie.
Uh-huh.
I've talked about this fight extensively on like my stream, but World of Warcraft has a fight that is, it is very much healer centric, and the premise of the fight is the tanks and the DPS have to just manage ads the entire time. It's just constantly waves of ads that spawn on a timer, and there's a different wave on each increment of the timer. But the healers have to heal up the target to full. It starts at half HP, and the fight ends when you successfully fully heal it. And there are periods of the fight where one or more healers can go into a pocket dimension, pick up little balls that give you increased mana regeneration and healing potency. And that's just the whole fight. And you have to kind of manage healing the boss and healing your party and kind of doing that kind of stuff. Would that be something that you would find more interesting to try?
I mean, I would definitely be interested. For me, it's like I feel like there have been situations where they've like tried out things and then the community will like not enjoy it a lot and they'll think like, "Oh, that means we shouldn't do that again." But it's like, I don't know, just trying new things is so nice cuz it's nice approaching something new even if by the end of it I hate it, you know?
See, they tried that with Shinryu Extreme,
That's what
but
yeah.
yeah, I just don't know if it was received well at all. Not I don't know if it's because of that mechanic specifically or the fight, but like people did not like Shinryu.
Yeah, I did.
I like the fight, but I was neither.
good.
No, I was tanking at that point. We had Akmorns that we shouldn't. Was that a stackable Akmorn? You had to place it.
I don't think it was
Yeah.
stackable because people didn't like it when I brought it to them.
It was
Yeah.
stackable with tanks.
The
When I-
non-tanks didn't appreciate it very much.
Yeah.
This is true.
This the ice and the placing that away from people, and that was a good fight. I like that fight.
Yeah, I guess my point is like for me I really love that fight. I know like Choco said a lot of people didn't like that healer mechanic. They found it really obnoxious and clunky, which is like fair, but at the same time it was just nice to have something different to approach and like
Anything
I'm
on
not
your
a
wish
game
list?
developer.
Like something
No.
that you would like I wish I could do this as a healer.
No, that's not in my job description. I
Okay.
just I'm just
Just do it.
asking for it. I'm not going to come up with any good ideas.
Okay.
Midas had a lot of really interesting mechanics, because like 5 with the different little colored puddles that had different mechanics you had to resolve different ways.
Mm-hmm.
6 was like the gauntlet, and each part of the gauntlet had its own mechanics, and having to do them back to back with like no break, and then kind of like combine them all at the end with 8, and then 7 had the different role jails. I thought was really an interesting way to divide up the roles and like what everybody's doing.
Oh yeah.
And it's I'm agree with something. I like experimentation in the mechanics and how they do stuff. The fights might not be the most conducive to like speed running, but I don't do the fights to speed run. I do them because the mechanics are fun.
Yeah.
And when they have more varied, interesting mechanics, it's more rewarding to do them than to just do something that's like something with a brain dead strat, like in E7, where you just kind of like either stand still or swap every now and then. That mechanic entirely ruined 7 for me, and I hated it. Had we had to like solve the portals some weird funky way, I think it would have been really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Move forward, move back. Now stay.
Yeah, that mechanic really felt like it was super cool to figure out for people who were doing it first and blind, and then like coming at it if you weren't figuring out yourself or during re-clears, it just got really not interesting really quickly.
Yeah.
All right.
Honestly, I wish there were more fights that used Ezuna, because I know in T,
Please.
Oh yeah.
so
I was like, please give us more like things like Asuna.
no, yeah, there. I forgot what that one,
I forgot that was a
what
spell.
the debuff name is, but in T, like 6 people get like a debuff that needs to be Ezuna, where they just die.
Yeah.
Throttle, thank you. But yeah, that I did Bard for one of the progs, so like I had to use my Wanders. So like, is it Wanders? So case in point, like just
Yeah.
more debuffs. Like they added that change with the little blue bar for debuffs, and like we don't even use it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
This is like reaching back, but I think it was T10 where a bunch of people would get like the little lightning bolt debuffs, and then if you didn't Asuna them, they'd all get paralyzed, and people would get so mad if you didn't Asuna them.
Is that 10? Trying to think. 10 was
I-
the big old coral.
It was
boy.
the cat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then yes.
I completely agree with the debuff thing, but I also think our debuffs should work on bosses. So like silence, stun, disarm, root, snare, all of those should not just be automatically resisted.
Mm.
Because I feel it would allow them to like have more interesting mechanics where we have to utilize different parts of our kit to deal with.
Yeah.
It's like, oh man, there's in going back to A6 with the orbs, you have to stun this one and maybe slow this one or stun this one twice. Let them go in at different times. Maybe you sleep an orb from a black mage,
Yeah.
have it just stand there for 40 seconds while the rest of the mechanics are kind of dealt with. And it allows for more variance in how you can solve things if you can disable certain aspects of the fight.
Yeah, they changed things. Like there's still remnants from when the game was more like Final Fantasy XI, where basically there were very few limits to what you could use in your kit for a fight. Very very. I don't remember things being like resisted very often, or it was important to have this boss debuff so it couldn't do this to you. And in the current iteration, it's just like you said, we've got all the stuff that we're not using. And there's the one argument where it's like, well, that would break current fights, but at the same time, they could also, like you said, get more creative with it. And if you stun it here, then this happens, or if make sure that this doesn't go off instead of just, is it your turn to faint? Okay, addled. Okay, next thing.
Yeah.
Kinda controversial, but obviously if you re-clear something like 12 times, it's gonna suck. But I did like E8's ad phase because of like the debuff usage.
Same. That was the only part of the fight that I liked.
I could stun shit. It felt great.
Yeah, I
It-
thought the ad phase was really interesting.
It just kind of goes to show it feels rewarding to use all of your kit.
Yeah.
And since we
Right.
have these parts of our kit that aren't used, it's like, why do I have this button? It just takes up space.
There's actually in the current raid tier for a while, one of the bosses has an ad where you have like he summons like shades or ghosts, and you have to basically CC it and the longer it's CC'd or the longer it stays alive, the more stacks, like vulnerability stacks it generates. And the whole time it's just like casting a raid wide that does a shit ton of damage. So the idea is you like debuff it, like polymorph, sleep, or something, and then once it generates enough stacks, you just burst the shit out of it, right? So like I feel like we have the tools for that, right? Like it doesn't have to necessarily be that, but we could use sleep. We have fluid aura, like binds. Oh, we have stuns. We have slows, like or heavies. Like we have so much shit. Just let us use it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And oh man, I had a point. Lost it. Continue.
Side note, Drek, I like how your assumption for the whatchamacallit abbreviation for Sage is SAG.
Mhm.
I don't
And
like
those-
that.
I don't know. SGE then.
Hey, everybody who wants to play the ball sack healer.
People have been playing Astro for years.
I feel like it'll be SGE. Would that be crazy?
Yeah, it'll probably be SGE.
Yeah.
There's no way it's gonna be SAG.
They're not a fan of vowels.
Sag.
It'll be Matoya's new class.
That's
God.
messed up.
Gravity taking its toll. But yeah.
Keep chiming in on the what do I want for the expect. It's not a tank thing; it's a healer thing. And this is something in chat pointed out. I made
You're
this
not
point
healing,
before.
Corey.
I know I'm not, but this is what I want for Astro to make it more interesting.
Mhm.
And this kind of ties into our last point. I know how they said they're gonna do it. It's like they're making Astro the regen healer. But what I originally wanted before they kind of said they were doing the split is give them 2 different decks of cards. And so you have like one deck where it's similar to where it is. It's all about buffing your allies and positive effects for your friends. And the other one is detrimental effects to your enemies. So like Nocturnal would be like vulnerability to the boss, damage down to the boss, slower confusion, or other stuff kind of like that.
We talked about 5.55.
What?
Can just is a minor spoiler, but in the instance for the story, I won't exactly explain why or how, but there was a point where you played as an Astro and you had 2 card buttons, right? One was offensive, one was somewhat defensive, and I was like, this is perfect, honestly, right?
Yes.
That's actually pretty good. Yeah.
And it's like I want cards, and it's like this kind of goes into the debuff thing. I want things that affect enemies in new ways that I couldn't do before, but they can definitely do to me. So like being able to give them vulnerability or damage down or slow, it would be game breaking with how things are designed now. But I think it would be a more interesting way to play Astro personally.
I was really surprised when I started the game that the scholar debuffs didn't really that they were just damage. Like the way that they sounded thematically, I was like, oh, I am, using bio on this boss. Are they going to get like a,
You have to take a shit in the middle of the fight. Got him.
There you go.
Yeah, it's only in the game so people have an auto translate when they're going to the bathroom.
But that's kind of like what I want out of Astro specifically is give them more interesting tools, because I think personally like Diurnal Astro right now is fine. I don't play too much of it, but like Nocturnal Sect or not Nocturnal, but what's the one where you can be in 2 at once?
Oh.
Yeah.
Choco, you're a healer.
No, wait.
Neutral. There we go.
Neutral.
Sorry, I missed the question. I was too busy memeing.
Like neutral sect, I think is a really cool ability, as is horoscope. I think they're really cool. Collective unconscious kind of leaves something to be desired, but like a neutral sect,
wait.
collective. That's the bubble.
Is so good.
It's so good.
I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying there's more to be desired. I don't like hitting a button and standing still for 10 seconds.
But you don't. You tap it.
I know, and you waste the entire use of I feel if you just hit the button and move and don't use the duration, why have the duration there? It feels like I'm wasting.
It's the same thing as Passage of Arms.
Yes,
Paladin.
I hate Passage too.
Oh my!
Oh man!
It's for screenshots.
Yeah, no,
that.
It's only good for screenshots. You use it for a tick of damage, and then the rest of the use of it is wasted. Because if you're not hitting the boss, you're kind of not doing what you should be. Sure, you mitigate a little bit extra damage, maybe get in 1 extra instance, but it's like, why?
I think the duration is there for 2 reasons, right? I'm speaking specifically for Collective Unconscious here, right? You have the instant tick, right, for raid wide AoE damage in the middle of a fight, but you have the option, keyword option, to hold it for transitions and phase changes.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I think the same could be said for Passage, but it's more so for a collective. Like Paladin, you have the option to use it instantly for just for example, like another reprisal, right? It's like 15% mitigation, something like that. So yeah, you have that instant AoE mitigation, and you have the option to hold it to do the mitigation and to block something, which is shit now. But you know, back
Yeah,
in the
like
day,
the
it's
block,
pretty
like
good.
okay, like I could just hit Sheltron and keep hitting the boss.
It'd be
And so
cool if
it's
you could like lay down the shield. I mean, okay, that kind of makes it exactly like the other healers with their shields. But like if it left like an apparition of you behind and then you could like move it or something. I don't know.
if there was a button that you could press on Astro to make it so you could either get one extra cast off during collective or move with it, I would hate it a lot less. But I do not like things where it's stand still and do this for a couple seconds because it doesn't mesh with how they design us to want to clear the fight.
Should be able to
I
add your
don't hate
card
the
buffs to it.
ability. I hate it in the context of 14.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I can understand that.
It looks pretty cool though.
It looks really good.
It's how people
The
summon the
animation
flood of
team is
light.
on point with it.
I will counter though, if you had collective become like its own entity, what separates that from like a fairy, basically? You know what I mean?
Not having
Nothing.
shitty AI.
True.
That's the one thing, right? Like if you had an apparition of yourself like mitigating for X amount of seconds, what's the difference between that and Fey Illumination?
What if you could like teleport
could-
back to it? That'd be pog.
Like that there's a lot of things I feel they
Mobility?
could do with it
On healer?
between the lines, but for Astro.
Yeah.
Or like
Broken.
even another thing you do is like, okay, inside of collective and conscious, it no longer does the like constant healing. But if you're in it, all of your like aspected benefics are now counted as AoE. That's not
It
distributed
should
amongst
pop
people.
horoscope.
Say it again.
It should pop horoscope.
That too. Healing
Or, like,
healing
cast it.
spells and abilities should not be coded as separate things. Like Lustrate doesn't proc Divine Veil, does it?
It doesn't, but I will say like I don't agree with that actually. Like
Why?
I think Paladin's shield should be stronger than it currently is, but keep the condition, right? Because like you want to have a risk / reward, if that makes sense, right? Like it's harder to activate Divine Veil, but you should be rewarded for doing so.
Fair.
So it's kind of bullshit that it's like the same potency as Shake It Off, but in like I don't want to say an ideal world, but like in a logical sense, it would be more valuable to pop Divine Veil. Because like the Paladin doesn't get it for one.
Yeah.
For like two, let me check. I'm actually in game right now. No, so Shake It Off is actually stronger.
Yeah.
So like
Well, it can't be stronger.
No, it's by default stronger. It's 15%
Oh,
at
that's
base
BS.
for Warrior,
Is it?
10% for Veil.
I thought Shake It Off started at 9.
It's 15 plus 2 for every ability.
Oh, okay. Oh yeah, then Divine Veil sucks.
Yeah, Divine Veil sucks. Like, buff it. What the hell, Square?
Chat does bring up a good point that Veil scales off the Paladin HP versus Warrior scaling off of the individuals.
That's true, but like,
So that's kind of like the differential, but that's a number crunching thing,
yeah.
and we can't tell how big the difference is there off the top of our heads.
So I'm doing
I thought
quick
Warriors
maths.
was based on Warriors HP.
No, it's off
The
our
one on you
parties.
is, but
Oh.
the whoever gets the shield, it's based off of their current their max HP. I think it is.
Oh, interesting.
So I actually just did the math right now. Like numerically, it's about the same. Warriors is still a little bit stronger, but like, it's like 1,000 HP her shield, but
Yeah,
still,
but then it
still
also has a
favors the
higher
warrior.
ceiling and is easier to use.
Yeah.
this is bullshit.
Yeah.
Well, that was quite a bit.
Yeah. I have more too, because like I know you mentioned this as a meme during raid, but if I could lock one person down and
Oh,
kind
gosh.
of give a targeted home gang to somebody, you can't move, but you also won't die. I would do that. I would do that so often. I would love it. Or even a reverse rescue. Let me bring the boss to me. Let me bring enemies to me. Let me deal with
yeah.
caster mobs in dungeons, so I don't want to rip my hair out.
I understand that, honestly.
It's so annoying.
I will say though, Corey, not like me holding down someone as a paladin. I would appreciate it if there was an ability that let me like, I don't care if it costs like 100 gauge, right? I want to be able to gap close to a party member, like ethereal manipulation, intervention / cover them at the same time. I would like that a lot.
Yes, please, please. That is a great ability. I would love that. Get rid of cover. Put that in the game.
I think
That's useful.
giving Dark Knight like a black hole that drags things in. Warrior throws out chains and drags stuff in. I don't know what Paladin would get, but maybe a charm.
Paladin can just bend over and show its cheeks.
Just a holy suck.
Then I don't know, for Gunbreaker, what do you how are you sucking things in?
Get over here, I'll shoot
With
you.
a
A
vacuum.
tornado.
Your gun is now a vacuum.
You start spinning your gun around until everything
Go
you
Tasmanian
tornado.
devils,
Yeah.
get over here.
Yeah, just like fucking what's the 72 ability? Faded Circle? Just
Uh,
do the animation for that 5 times at like 600% speed.
Yeah. in T, how there's the tornado at the
Oh
end
my
of the, like, give me that. Let me have that. I'll even like make it so super sets my health to 1, doesn't regen the HP for the duration of it, but let me just do tons of damage while I'm doing it. Really risk it for the biscuit over here.
Healers input.
I mean, if look, when Corey hits super or Drag when you hit Living Dead, and Sophie says I don't have Benny, it's like not because like oh fuck you guys, but it's like as a scholar, I just don't have shit. I really don't.
I made the joke on Joe Cat made a video about tanks, and I was like, Living Dead doesn't kill people. It's healers who aren't white mage.
Make Lestray do percent health again.
Oh yeah,
Please.
I missed that.
I wouldn't mind that.
With how inflated our HP is, that's probably very beneficial.
I mean, it's gonna stat squish next. Like just saying, a lustrate, which we get 3 of in exchange for energy drain and other utility, is slightly weaker than a cure 2. Just to put that in perspective.
It's like, why? It doesn't have to be.
I think someone did the math and they said that benediction was something like, I want to say like 5,000 potency. No, that's a little high. I don't remember, but it was like a 4-digit potency number. To get close to that, we have to burn like all of our Aether Flow stacks. It's like,
It feels bad.
Yep. Yeah.
where's the
That's
beef?
something. I do like Excog though. Excog's a nice ability. When it
I like
pops.
Excog is great. Yeah, you're right. When it fucking
When
pops
it
and you don't
pops.
have like 2% HP, 52%.
But that doesn't help the Living
7,500,
Dead.
thank you.
But it's good. It's good for like it's that a decent kind of mitigation heal.
Since we're on the topic of invulns, somebody in chat asked, should invulns still let me get the exact phrasing of the question. Should they get rid of tank invulns?
No.
I would not complain if they got rid of them, all of them, because I use them because they're efficient at dealing with mechanics.
Right.
But
Yeah, I see the
we
argument for
can
it.
just ignore how mechanics are kind of
you know what?
intended to be solved.
I don't mind if they made them like a chart, like a you can only use hollowed once per like pull or something like that.
Yes.
I wouldn't mind that, but
Yeah.
to just be like no more invuls, I don't think that's fair. For progression, for clutch saves, etc. I don't think that's a good thing.
Yeah, bring back 2-hour abilities. Yeah, it's that they'd have to go back and adjust fights to not need
Right.
them.
Because
No fights require them that I'm aware of.
Think of. All right.
Every mechanic that we invuln that I'm aware of can be done with cooldowns and proper like planning and like swaps.
the problem is, right, like the idea that you don't need invulns only applies if you know a fight and can prepare for everything perfectly, right? The whole point of an oh shit panic button is not necessarily if you fuck up, but if everyone else fucks up.
True.
Right?
It's just
Like,
the amount of times I've used my invuln as a save versus it is planned mitigation right now. My tank
Well, no,
invuln
that's
is
the
a
point,
cooldown.
because
it's not a button.
because
that I
we're I'm not like trying to like inflate our egos or anything, but we're at the point where we can do a fight and not expect to need it at any point, right? Like we can assume like, hey, we have enough foresight and skill to forego it as a no shit button.
But that's kind of my other point, is that any fight for people who wouldn't necessarily be like, to kind of go with your point, I'm not trying to flatter you, but like people who aren't at our skill levels to like need the oh shit button, they're already going to be using their cooldowns where the guides tell them to, because that's the easiest, that's the point where it's used to make the fight the easiest. Even if you save it, you're making the fight harder by having to mitigate that thing that would otherwise be involved.
It's true.
Because like in 11, how I invuln the first and third powder mark, having to being able to just ignore my positioning entirely and not have to heal me during that is already a lot easier, I feel, on you guys than having to actively heal me while trying to also mitigate it and worry about where I'm standing.
Yeah.
And so it brings like the skill level down required to do that. And so while we could handle not having to use our invulns on those parts quite easily, I think it would be harder for other people who are more reliant on it to kind of get through a phase potentially.
I don't necessarily agree. I think for 11 specifically, it was more of a convenience thing and not like a you know, like, oh, you know, like we need this, you know what I mean? Like if we could have done it without mitigation because, or we could have done it with mitigation, like you would just lose uptime. And I think that was like the main reason, because if we had done it normally, you would lose uptime. And because we're at that like at that skill level, we care about uptime. So you're just like, no, fuck that, I'm hitting bulllight.
Yeah. For E9, it was a similar situation where we learned to do anti-air and wide angle correctly, and then learned, oh, we could just invuln this and get uptime. So it was the reverse for us, but that might be because of our skill level. But yeah, I feel like this is similar to what we're talking about with like what is that defined how we want people to, like, what skill level do we want people at? Because it would force people to adjust to it. Probably be a net positive in the long run, but I don't know. It thematically it feels
less
good.
Convenient.
Yeah, less convenient. I like the theme of it for tanks personally. Just having that ability, it makes sense, I guess.
I agree with having an oh shit button, but I don't think it should be an invulnerability or I get to ignore mechanics button.
Well, they do have certain mechanics that ignore it too.
Well, that's the other thing. I hate how arbitrary it is on what goes through it and what doesn't. I think an invuln should be an invuln, and where I will not die or take damage. It is absolute. There's no caveat. There's no conditionals. It's just it will work as advertised every time. There should be no, oh well, this ability goes through invulns because we say so. I don't like that. If something's going to go through my invuln, make my invuln just like a 99% damage reduction or something else. I don't care. But don't give me an invuln that doesn't always work.
Yeah.
I hate stuff like that.
Turns the next hit into a dot on yourself over the next 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Boom. New mitigation.
There's ideas that Corey's brought up from WoW, like not even just like tanking, but like healing as well, that are really interesting concepts like that.
Because the Brewmaster shuffle mechanic is just that, Choco, and it's really cool. For people in chat who don't play WoW, Brewmaster Monk takes, I think it's 20% of all damage received as a dot over X period of time after the initial hit, and then the initial hit is reduced by that amount.
Yep.
And they have a cooldown that just lets them remove that dot, so they can just take off that much damage from entirely. And it constantly like is updated when you take new damage stuff. It's a very interesting kind of way to tank.
It sounds cool. Like I'd like for fortunately Final Fantasy isn't in like they're not negatively competitive with WoW, so I'd like to see them do more like collaborative stuff. Not collaborative, but take ideas,
Yeah.
you know, and benefit from each other. I think WoW's done a few things that Final Fantasy has done to improve, and I'd like to see it on the other end because some of these ideas sound really interesting. Ultimately, I'd still like the team to not be held back by the shackles of 1.0. I think they'd be able to do a lot more, but right now it's like we want them to do interesting stuff, and I feel like it always circles back to, but that's going to change how these old fights work and this and that, and then we'd have to update it all, and so it's just there's so much that we're held back to because of what's come before.
Hey,
Yep.
Drak,
Yes.
can I ask a question?
Uh-huh.
Why does the stream title say tank parentheses and healer parentheses talk?
Because it was originally called Tank Talk, and then I brought healers in too, so
And
I wanted to keep the alliteration.
Healers aren't people.
I did not say that.
Drag 2019.
That was not my thing.
You should update your title to Tank, Talk, and Healer Hullaballoo.
Oh, okay, yeah, I like that.
A little
There we
fun
go.
word.
Will
That's
do.
all. That
Will
was
do.
my question.
Okay.
So yeah, that's kind of my take on invulns. So what do we want to go over
Let's spell
next?
Hullaballoo.
So I don't know. I'm not. Do I look like I won the spelling bee?
I'll fix it later.
My healer called the Baloo.
Let's see. We talked about. Did we say like what you liked being changed for your role? Did we touch on that? I know it's like what we wanted to change, but
So things I liked coming from Stormblood, was the removal of stance dancing, because I felt that if something was just not optimal to do, there wasn't really a point to continuing to have it. And sure, aggro is kind of like a non-factor now, and some people might call it too easy, but it's also kind of lowered the barrier for entry to get into tanking, which I'm kind of for. I would rather more people be interested in tanking and getting to try it than being too afraid of, I'm not going to be able to hold aggro in this dungeon and just not doing it at all.
yeah.
And then the Paladin Paladin I think has gotten consistently better every expansion since Realm Reborn. And they keep kind of adding things. I'm like, I wish they had this, and then they do it. And I'm like, you know what? Good on you guys. Paladins.
Yeah.
I like the way you're going with Paladin. Keep doing it. And Gunbreaker release was really good. TBN feels super satisfying.
I'm so
Warrior
salty
just-
right now.
What was that,
What?
Choco?
I'm so like I like what they've done to the roles, but as individual jobs, I'm kind of upset with the changes they've made. This is like mini rant. I'm sorry. Number one, they got rid of shield swipe. That made me so sad. Number two, they neutered block scaling, which is like the only good thing Paladin had going for it, right? Like
That is
End of
fair.
Stormblood, 30% block mitigation. Oh, free vengeance every 5 seconds. But like for Scholar, they got rid of the pets, or they got rid of Celine specifically. Like cosmetically, she's there, but you know, the abilities are gone.
Yeah, I feel like with healers, like I think the main reason I stuck to White Mage so much this expansion is because White Mage was the only one that I felt like net positive about things that they added. Whereas like Astrology and Scholar, I didn't like hate, but I was there was confusion and not feeling like
Yeah.
it all felt 100% great.
Yeah. For Dark Knight, I like that they switched Dark Arts to the I like that it still has an off global to hit. It's not as spammy.
Dark Arts.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's like the edge is really nice and you can keep using it throughout the fight, and it's that I enjoy. I'd like Living Shadow to be kind of a mini limit break or something, where it's a kind of a higher, it might reset cooldowns, do a little bit of an animation lock, but I always thought of like you summon Frey and then you both like rush through like in this either a diagonal or you cross paths and go back, like a little animation. I thought that would be cool as an attack to keep Frey but change it up from Bunshin. That's something that stream was talking about. They were more people liked it than I thought they would.
That'd be a really long animation lock that I would love to see you deal with.
I think you could get it done within like 2.5 seconds,
Oh,
3
the
seconds.
salt! I can just hear the high
That's a
end
long
salt.
time to be animation locked.
Yeah, but oh
You've
man,
heard
it'd be so
Dragoon's baby
cool.
rage. Now listen to Dark.
So I've not played Chrono Trigger, chat, so I'm just going off of my thinkles. But yeah, and I'll save my monk talk for Thursday. Let's see.
Yeah, I don't like that they took away all the time related stuff from Astro.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. It to me when they took away all that stuff, I was like, "Oh, are they adding time mage? Is this what this means?" And
Rip those
it's
1
not
minute pots.
what
Only
they
take,
meant.
no give.
Oh,
yeah.
before we move off, speaking of Astro, what do you guys think of the old cards versus new cards debate?
I think that it wasn't like I don't have a strong opinion because like either card system can't really exist with the other system. Like how to say the Stormblood cards I think were a lot more fun, but they couldn't exist with Shadowbringers and the way they've changed stuff like TP and stuff.
Yeah, I liked the old card system better, but I had similar feelings. And just in general, like I don't want that. Like I was happy that they tried something different. I just didn't particularly enjoy it.
I would love Arrow now. Like modern. I would love Arrow so much. Especially on Black Mage, but
I agree that like you or Inspire couldn't coexist with how things are now. But I was not a fan of the old card system because when I would try Astro and I would get Spire, Ewer, Spire, 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 Ewer, I would get so mad because it's like, what am I gonna do with all this garbage?
yeah.
You
like-
yourself in spam gravity.
Yeah, basically. And it's like I did not like that possibility, and I like that now the worst I get is a small DPS loss. I know they're all the same, and it's just kind of like based on who your target is now. And I've not had as much experience with the seals being as problematic as some people have. But it's still less of a punishment to have your seals bad than it is to have that many Ewers and Spires in a fight.
Yeah, I would have liked the effects to be really strong and maybe the healing take a hit. As long as you're able to buff the people around you to either take less damage or deal more healing. Like, I really want them to get over their fear of a genuine support class. Whether it's a ranged or a healer or whatever. As long as you're making up for it and what you give to the team, I think that could be really engaging and cool. But of course, the fear is, well, now everybody's going to want it because it's going to be the most optimal. It's like, that's not always the case, I don't think, because it's just how well are you playing it and what are you giving to the party. So as long as everything you have access to, or if you can at some point control the RNG of it, would be a lot better. Because I loved like Corsair from 11. I know it's not a one-to-one comparison on 14 as a game and 11 as a game, but just having somebody sit back and just buff your party was always just really fun to have.
That is fair. What is next?
I want to talk about everybody's favorite nest moment from this expansion.
This expansion?
Yeah.
Expansion.
God, I gotta
we can have a
deep
few.
into memory banks.
I
Maybe
don't think I'm ever gonna hear the end of asking you about your food. So
Me neither. What a coincidence. That was a good meme. I still love Corey running away from you as you're trying desperately to survive with that mechanic in E1.
oh yeah.
That killed me.
That kills Sophie too.
Stay away from me. No, come back.
I think my connection issues in E4 was pretty good. That was painful, but it was great.
Oh God.
Which one was that?
When I was playing from Germany, we were plugging E4 and like my computer was forcing me to auto run off the
Oh,
arena.
yeah.
That was
Oh, man.
great.
I don't
Chat really
I
likes
don't know
the
if I
gooch
can pick a
press.
favorite.
Bro, that's just the recency effect. Come on, guys. That's like every other day.
Yeah.
Right? Because like a lot of like my memory's not the greatest, and I have a lot of recency bias for stuff, and I'm like, people ask me like, "Oh man, you remember this?" I'm like, "No," and they'll be referencing
Shut
something
up.
from the previous tier or the tier before. I'm like, I could not tell you what it is I did or said, and to whom,
I should have done the
but I'll
best of
believe
videos
it if you
first.
tell me it happened.
You guys would have everything in recent memory, but I'm trying to get some of those reclear videos out first. Yeah, but
So in one of the recent videos or recent reclears is like I died to something, and then I didn't provoke before Black Halo, and I was like, I usually mention when I provoke to announce that it's happened, and the fact that I had not should have told you that I did not, and you just stood
I
there.
assumed you were being perfect as you always do.
Oh, I
and-
was. I deliberately didn't provoke.
Oh yeah,
I
that
also
was
deliberately
intentional.
didn't stand in the Black Halo.
Huh?
I decided when I died that I was like, I'm not gonna provoke, and I'm gonna see what they do, and they did exactly. All of you did
I was
exactly.
trying
what
to
I thought
do
you would
my part of the fight, not like, oh my gosh, I call BS. Oh,
That.
made me so mad.
And then there's times in 12 on the last buster when I decided to provoke it back, so that way you take the wrong hit and die. That's another good one that never gets old.
I'm feeling less and less sorry about letting you die during 10. we were proccing that one.
Why do you think I did it? It's like,
The
oh,
only
man,
time
we're
I
in the
had-
same week. You killed me in 10. Here's this extra buster hit for you.
Oh man, good times.
Those are usually intentional when you die.
So that's yeah, that actually comes up in one of the videos coming up here. I don't know if it's the one that I just posted or the coming one.
It was either one of the ones that are like posted to be released soon or the one that just released. I don't remember which.
Yeah, it's like,
I was
oh, we
watching them.
finally
That's what
made it.
reminded me of it.
And I was like, oh, I'm not paying attention. I can't focus on like, okay, where's aggro at this very second, and just like, all right, what's my rotation, and do I have to hit reprisal? It's about as much as I can do. I miss DPS, man.
Oh, the trust swap in 12 recently.
Oh, that was clean.
That was good from
That was
YouTube.
coming up.
Choco
Yeah.
Sophie.
Oh yeah.
I loved that.
Oh, okay. You're talking about something different.
Yeah, when they have the stacks and they swap sides and then they don't swap back, or one of them swaps back.
Yeah. Oh, I thought we were doing the thing.
It wasn't a trust swap. It was a game with no balls.
I will say I've very much enjoyed having you both as healers. It has been a lot of fun tanking with you guys having to heal me.
The feeling is sometimes mutual.
Healing's a chore, man. With Corey around, it's a fucking chore.
Yeah, I bet. Good thing I'm only getting damage down and not Von stacks now. Remember,
I know, right?
remember O10?
Jesus. I do, clearly.
Doesn't matter if you're on tank or healer. You got to deal with my dumbass.
Slap backpack leg.
Just stand out of it, Corey. It's like I'm trying.
I'm going as
It's
fast
not
as
very
I can.
successful.
But Choco, don't you want to heal with Corey? I can just
Tank.
not
You want
no.
clear content?
I have my healer geared up. It is savage ready.
Geared and clear ready are two very different things.
I didn't say clear. I said savage ready. I didn't say clear ready. Those are different.
So speaking of this, what fight should we take in our alt jobs to?
12.
Add one more week, or should we get our should get our eighth page and then go back in?
Get our 8 pages and then we can start doing alt job runs.
Do I have to level something?
I mean, the
maybe.
alternative is healing with me.
Mm.
Pick your poison.
Concern.
Do you want me on Astro or Scholar, or do you want me on?
I'm
Or do you
buying a
want to
boost.
tank?
Some people are saying E9, some people saying diamond. We actually didn't do a diamond video. That would be a good opportunity.
Yeah, but I already know I can clear diamond on other things.
I haven't done diamond yet.
That would be interesting.
Let's just prog T on alt jobs.
I am down.
Oh, jeez.
No hesitation. Let's go.
I would love to do that, but I work, Smile.
It would be during normal raid times. You're fine.
Yeah, my hours are pretty fucked. I have no idea, Chief.
I'll call your job. I'll
Let
make
me
them
talk to your
understand.
boss.
Yeah, I want to speak to your manager. I'll make them agree with me.
So
Not only will you get to raid, you'll get paid for it.
we are approaching a 2-hour mark here. I think we'll finish up with this
Are we?
last bit. Yep, it's been hour
That's
53.
116 on the stream.
Dinner time.
So is it only 116? Is that? I think that's when it died.
No, it's been 2 hours.
After you reset it.
I know
Yeah.
what I said.
Okay. How was it? I'll start with Sophie and Choco. How was it healing with each other for this tier?
Coco?
It was pretty good. It's like, I mean, it was a complete shit show because like I had no idea what I was doing. I still kind of don't know what I'm doing, but it was a good experience. Some cheeky flame once in a while. Smile.
Yeah, I had fun. It was good.
All right, Corey. How was it, brother?
I've tanked with you before. This is nothing new.
True, but in this
I've
expansion, was it
tanked with-
anything different?
Was it anything different? You're on Dark Knight this time.
I was on Dark Knight in
You were on Paladin.
for a lot of it. I remember I tried Dark Knight and then everybody blamed me for playing it wrong.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess that's.
I'm used to tanking with a wide cast of people. 'Cause I don't know if I've gone 2 consecutive tiers with the same co-tank in 2 expansions now.
I'd
In
have
2 whole expansions or
No, 2 consecutive tiers.
2 consecutive tiers. Technically, the first and second tier you tanked with the same person.
But it's like even across like Stormblood, and there was a lot of like mix up with the roles. So I'm used to adapting, so I can kind of do whatever. And it's actually probably playing with so many people has made it a lot easier to kind of learn how different people tank versus each other, because like everybody has their own kind of like way they react and handle unexpected things, and kind of having to understand how each individual person reacts to different I'll say stressors during unforeseen events kind of is fun to witness and kind of adapt around, because like you default to different like locations and react differently than say Choco does when you guys are tanking, and having to kind of like account for that on who goes where when they panic is interesting.
Fair.
But it's
I
been
will
fun.
I will say though, Drake, you didn't ask how healing was with Corey. That is a shit show.
Oh, I mean, we know that. Because it's either he's hitting super after you Benny him, or like blow all your cooldowns on him, or he's killed somebody and now you have to res them. So
Or he just straight up hasn't hit super.
I'm trying to get the most amount of mitigation.
I still would rather heal Corey than heal with Corey, so it's fine.
we're still on the right side here. Well, all right.
There's another point we didn't go over.
Mm-hmm.
Favorite Shadowbringers story and like raid dungeons and stuff.
Yeah, we got a little extra time. Go for it.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep you here as long as I fucking can.
Okay.
I'm hungry.
I know you had
I was
a really
really
good one.
big fan of the Hades storyline and like the Hades trial for the expansion. That was a big high moment for the story for me, and I don't know if they're going to be able to top that next expansion. I'll keep it brief
Yeah.
this time.
Well, yours was because the Ardbert scene, right?
No,
That was part.
I really enjoy Emmett Selch as a character. The Arbor scene was really good, but like the entirety. So I don't know. There's an L in there, and there's a CH. It's not CK.
Yeah, that's how I say it.
It's like squelch without the Q.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Emmett
will say
Squelch.
I will say the 5.0 story was really really good. Damn, it was like 2 years now. 2 years ago, hot summer day, just like staring at the screen, like, oh shit, dude, we just killed this old man.
Right? I
Um,
really. Sorry, Sophie. Go ahead.
No, well, I haven't actually read any of the Shadowbringers story yet.
Wow.
I was like waiting to do it all at the same time. So like I'm gonna do it soon.
That
I
is
know that,
quite
like,
the revelation right now.
I mean, I forget if I do it one patch at a time, and then I get really confused.
That is relatable.
I mean, 5.0 to 5.3 happened a while ago. That's a section.
Oh, well,
No, you have
I'll
homework.
try not to spoil anything then.
No,
but-
it's okay. I don't remember. Like I've had so much spoiled for me, but I don't remember any of it because none of it means anything. Because haven't read any of it, so that's why I'm gonna do it all at once.
that one scene with gosh, now I can't even remember his name. The big Amaro.
Seto.
Yeah. That one. I was like mentally and emotionally preparing, and it did nothing. Like I was just a friggin' mess. That one was such a good cry. It was so amazing.
That was probably the scene.
About 3.
That and like the Axiom were probably the closest
20 cherry.
I've come in the game to like having a crack in the armor. Because my dog had passed away not super, like maybe a year before, and just like during the timing of when I was going through the quests was getting close to like the year mark of that, and so the Seto bit hit me a lot harder than I thought it would.
Badge.
Well, all right. I think that wraps it up. Anything else? Any other closing statements you guys want to say?
One more thing.
One more
One more.
My
thing.
wife didn't know what that was. I had to explain it to her.
Oh my gosh.
I think I saw a few questions in chat, like, what are the rules going to be for Endwalker? And as far as I know, unless Drak, you've like talked to everyone and planned something out, I think it's going to stay the same, right?
No, everything actually is going to be able to change. You're able to go back on tank. I'm going to be going back to melee. Sonic's going to go on caster. I'm letting Whoops go back on melee.
Hey.
So there's a lot of room for like discussion if you want to do new things.
I'm gonna play SAG.
Sack. Yeah, so
That means White Mage is open.
I was gonna ask like what you thought of Sage, but like they haven't released a whole lot. Usually by this time we'll have a job trailer or something like
pew,
that.
4
but-
dildo crystals. Pew pew.
So
I'll probably want to play it, but like I guess no promises.
oh yeah, Hans is gonna be going into the healing role as well. So
Oh, we're gonna play double Sage? Nice.
I think he was okay going scholar or something. He was flexible, but I'm looking forward to his sass on Corey
Well,
next.
if Hans wants to tank, that means healer's open.
You'll have
that's
to
not
talk
out
to
of the
him about
cards.
that. But yeah, I'll see if anybody else wants to play Reaper. I'm looking forward to that one, just because it's everything I asked for in a job.
I mean, you can just stay tank, and I'll go Reaper then.
The jokes again. Are we gonna fight over Dragoon? And no, you get chests now. they're they doesn't anyway. All right. So thank you guys for hanging out. That's all for today. And maybe we'll do another one of these when we're getting closer to Endwalker and we have more information. But for now, that's all I can think of. I'll let you guys go eat, use the restroom, what have you. So
Thanks, teacher.
No problem. All right. Have a good one then, everybody.
Bye.
Y'all have a good night.
All right. And so that's it for tonight. Thank you, everybody who was watching. Everybody on YouTube. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope the hiccup wasn't too bad for that dead period in the beginning. We will be back on Thursday for YouTube. It will be. I'm going to try and post this on Wednesday for the whole 24-hour Twitch partner. What is it? Embargo or whatever that I have to adhere to. So that will be on Twitch tomorrow for everybody on YouTube. For everybody watching on Twitch right now, it'll be on Thursday in 2 days. Same time, same place. We will be joined by Hans, Whoops, me, obviously, Sonic, and Raya. So it might be a little messier. Hopefully, we don't talk over each other too much. I don't like going over 4 people, but I don't want to leave anybody out either. So that's everybody who will be participating in that. So I hope you look forward to it. I appreciate Sam, I appreciate Lemur, I appreciate everybody who subs in, Mars, and anybody that I forgot off the top of my head. You guys are all awesome and amazing and fantastic, but we're sticking to the main cast. Otherwise, oh yeah, let's just have 10 people in the chat. So, no, Sam, I'm just saying it for the camera. Do you really? No. I'll see you in Monster Hunter later. But yeah, so hope you guys have a great rest of your night. God bless you all. We will see you next time on the stream.